Hey folks, this is AppShocker. This is the second video on WatchKit App Programming with Swift. Today we're going to create a simple but very cool app that will display the following three elements. We're going to use a button, a label, a switch, and a slider. Let's just start off by creating a very simple single view application. Just click on Next. Now we're going to call it my first simple app. Click on Next. There you go. Now we got our own first basic app created. Now let me just check out what we're gonna do. First, obviously, because we're gonna use a WatchKit app, we need to do something that you learned previously in my first video, which is you have to go to File, New, then you go to Target, and then here you see that the WatchKit App Target pops up here. Select this here and click on Next. Now, the very important thing here is that we're not going to use any notification or glance in here, so just uncheck this here, because we're going to talk about these those two scenes in the upcoming tutorials. But for now, we're going to just uncheck this here. Click on Finish. Click on Activate here. And now we're ready to start out with some coding. Okay, as you can see, first you just open up the first two folders here, which is the WatchKit extension and the WatchKit app. First, let's just go to our interface storyboard here. Click here, and let's just drag and drop a button onto our interface controller. Good, so now as you can see we have a default text on it, which is called button. Let's just click on it and remove this default text, and let's just name it click. Just to check out whether our WatchKit app actually works, let's just compile it first. As you can see, you have to have this target here selected, and let's just click on run. Let's just figure out what's going to pop up. So as you can see, now we got our iOS simulator with our WatchKit, and let's just check out what's going on here. It takes a little, as you know from experience. Let's just wait a little until it launches completely. As you can see, it took several seconds to launch the iOS Apple WatchKit simulator. But you know, this is the way it is currently, because you know this is the beta version of Xcode, so it'll take some time till the Apple WatchKit simulator starts faster. But you know, that's just the way it is currently. But what worked correctly is the fact that here we got our button. As you can see here, we named it also click. We can also click on it, but nothing happens. So now we stop the simulator. And in order to provide some logic for this button, we need to go to first to our interface controller. Click here and click on this tuxedo here, because then we can also see the class responsible for this button in this case. So as you can see, this is the interface controller. Here we need to do some. Here we actually have to implement our logic. Let's just create an action here. You do this if you just click on Control, drag and drop this little blue line here, and insert an outlet or an action in this case. Now here you can see by default we have an outlet, but we don't want to have any outlet currently. Here in this case we just create an action. An action is nothing else than just creating a function for this button. Let's just call it the button function. Okay, there you go. So remember, this here IB stands for interface builder. That area here you can see, meaning the whole program actually that is embedded in Xcode is the interface builder, because you can create your interface via different UI elements. So that's the reason why it's called IB, because it comes from the interface builder and it is a function. So if we click on this button later, then this method, or to be more precise, this function will be called. So, however, we will also create a reference to our button, because we will also have to change some properties of this button later. So let's just click on Control and create here this instance. Let's just call it the button. And we also generate it up here because then we also have the possibility to make a reference to this button from the different methods that will also be created later on. So this is the reason why we also put it up here. Okay, now we got our reference to our button and we got our IP action for our button. Now, as we cannot do much with just clicking on the button, we also need to have something that will display some content. So in this case, we will just randomly pick something that is called a label. The label you can find down here in this list of different UI elements. Do it the same way as you did with the button. You just drag and drop it onto your interface storyboard. Let's just change this string here into something that sounds a little better. I just call default text. So just to check out whether we did that correctly, let's just run it again. Let's just click on compile. Let's just check out what about our iOS simulators, and boom, there you go. So you see it worked. We created a label and we also changed the text of the label, which is now called default text. Very good. Let's just stop it here and let's just provide some logic. Good. So now our test is the following. We want the user to click this button here, then we want some text to appear here in this label. Let's just do this. I'm gonna use just some random strings because this is not really important what kind of string or what kind of text I'm gonna use, because I just want to show you how to actually use a label and a button in tandem. So let's just assume we create a constant, a string constant, and let's just name it default string. And let's just write down this is a sample text. Okay, let me just expand a little so that you can see it better. So now, as you can see, this is our constant string variable we're going to use to display the text here in this label. So, and it's called, this is a sample text. Very good. Now, let us just check out whether this worked correctly. Let me just get rid of the space here. I don't like to have any redundant space in our functions or in our code in general, so I always remove that. It's also a good coding style, actually. Let's just compile it and just run it. Let's just check out what's going on. Okay, now let's just check out whether the function is called correctly when we click on this button. No, it's not called and nothing happens, obviously. So why doesn't it work? Well, but up to now, if we click on our button, nothing will happen, obviously. So as you can see, we created a label previously because this is the UI element that will actually display this string constant here. So, but in order to do that, we also have to tell this function how to do that. So let me just be more precise. First, we just created our label in our interface storyboard, but we haven't actually created any variable for it. And we do it as in the case of the button. You just click on control and you generate this blue line here and you put it right beneath the button. Let's just call it the label. Okay, very good. So now we can use this variable here because this represents our label here, and we can also work with it. We're gonna use it down here, and a label also has a property that is called setText. Or it's, and to be more precise, we have a text property, and we also use a setter, which in this case is the setText. And here it says the parameter requires a string. So what is our string? It is the default string we created previously. We're gonna put it here, and boom, Now we're done with that. Let's just check out what it looks like. Let's just compile it. Let's just use this here. Okay. So now we click on the button, and as you see, very good. It worked well. Our previous text, which was the default text, was changed to this is a sample text. So as you can see, that worked perfectly. Now we did what we actually want to do. So furthermore, if you intend to change some other properties of other UI elements, you're also free to go to do that. So for instance, I'm going to show you just very basic ones. What is also pretty common is, for instance, if you want to change some properties of a UI button, you can do it this way, for instance. So remember, if you want to change some properties of a UI element, in this case the button, you need the name of the variable here. Let's just place it here, and this UI element also has some properties like color, and it also has a setter which is called set color. So, and let's just assume we want to change the color to green color. So now we can also check out whether this works correctly. Let's just compile it, open up the simulator, and let's just click on it. So you see, we did not even change the text in the label. We also changed the color of this button from no color to green color. So you see that also worked. Let me just stop it here. What we can also do is we can also change another property of this button. Let's just use this here, the button, and it also has a different property which is called title. So this is actually this text here. Remember, I changed the previous name of this button, which was simply button, to click. Now I want to change this here also to something different. Let's just change it to click me. Okay, just to make sure that we can actually use this property. Don't forget, just compile it, open up the simulator, and now we click on the button again. And there you go. We changed also the title of this button to from click to click me. So as you can see, we actually did three things in this function. We did the following. First, we changed the text of the label, which is this here, and we also changed the color of the button from nothing to green, and we also changed the title from click to click me. So we did three things with this button function. So you can see that when you program your own WatchKit app, you now know how to work with a button. Okay, let me just close it here. So this is just one aspect, and this is just one combination you can use. So you learned how to use a button and a label. Furthermore, what you can also use is you can use a switch in combination with a label. Let me just go back to the list of UI elements we have here. So remember, we have something that's called switch. Let me just drag and drop it onto our interface storyboard 2. Let me just go here. Let me just close this here again. So let me just show you how to do this. First, as in the case of the previous two UI elements, namely the button and the label, we also have to create another variable for this here in our interface controller Swift class. Let me just call it the switch. Okay, so now we can also make use of it here. So let me just check it out. So first of all, let me just take a look at what actually this class can do by just jumping to the definition. So as you can see, it doesn't do much. It just has two functions, which is called a set enabled and set on, and both are of type Boolean. Okay, so we know this here, but we also can figure out what kind of function it provides, or to be more precise, what kind of function Xcode provides to us regarding a switch. So let me just create also a function regarding the switch. Let me just generate it down here. As you can see, previously I can generate a variable, but now I see I can also choose from this list here, not just creating a variable, meaning an outlet. Namely, you can also use an action. So you generate actually a function for this switch here. Let me just call it the switch function. So let me just also create some space here so that you can see it better. So let me just generate some space here. Okay, so you can see here this UI element provides you this function, and it also requires a parameter which is called value, and it's of type Boolean. Obviously it is a Boolean because, as you can see, a switch here just has two states, and that's the reason why you use a Boolean for that, for true or false. So in order to use the switch, actually, let me just write down this logic here. So you can see we have a value we can work with. So let's just use a very simple if-else conditional. Let's just write down if. So the value, this is what's coming in. If this value is true, okay, a Boolean. Now let's just write down what we're gonna do. Remember, we also have this label here. We're gonna use this label too. So this label will also work in tandem with the other UI elements here. We're gonna write down set tags to true. Okay, so very simple. And if it's not true, then we're gonna write down the label. Oops, it's not the button, it's the label, exactly. Set text to false. So very simple. So let me just check it out. Let's just remove this space here. Let's just compile and check out whether it worked. Okay, it's compiling. Let's just open up the simulator. And here you can see, yes, it worked. We generate one. Let's just click on this here. False, true, false, true. So you can see it worked perfectly, and you can also use the switcher just by checking the value that is coming in from the switch. And in this case, as you can see, I just used very simple ones, just checking whether it's true, and if it's true, then just set the text of this label to true, and if not, set it to false. So very simple. You can do whatever you like with the switch statements, whether it's true or false, but I just use this very simple string literals just to demonstrate how to use a switch function. Now you know how to use a switch. For today, we're going to also find out how to use a slider. Let's just go back to the list of our UI elements here. So you see here we also have our slider. Do the same thing as in the previous three cases, namely just drag and drop it onto our interface storyboard. Close it, and let's just work with it. So remember, we also have to create a variable for it so that we can work with it. So let's just use this here, and let's just call it the slider. So now we have our variable for that. And a slider UI element also has a function, namely an IB action. Let's just create it here too. So as you remember, it's not an outlet, it's an action. Let's just call it the slider function. And there you go, now we generated it. Let us just check out what this class also provides to us and what we can use here in this IB action. So as you can see, the same thing here holds true as in the case of a switch, namely we have a parameter which is called value, and but it's not of type Boolean, it is of type float. So because here you get different values from clicking on plus or minus. So let's just do something very basic in this case. What we want to do here is that if we click on plus or minus, we want to have a string displayed in our label up here. Namely, let's just write down the value is what is coming in from here, meaning by clicking on plus or minus. Okay, so in order to do that, we need a string variable. So let's just call it var my value. Just write it here this way. And let's just use a string formatter. This is easier to do this way. So here, formatting means that you determine how the string will be displayed in this label here, meaning let's just write down value, meaning obviously with inverted commas, value is let's just use our specifier here. It's this here, and we need an argument. An argument is basically the variable where you retrieve your value from. In this case, it's our value. Okay, let's just put it here, and this variable here that is filled by clicking on plus or minus will be filled here, and you put this value actually here where it says percentage sign, percentage f to be more precise, because it's a float, so we have percentage f. So furthermore, but we also have to tell the operating system that it has to display this string somewhere, meaning where do we display it? What do we have? Our label, obviously. So we're going to use our label here, and you already know that it has a property that's a setter, which is called setText. And let's just use this string variable, namely my value, put it here, and boom, you're done. Let's just figure out whether we did that correctly by just clicking on it. Just close it, obviously, and now you have to compile it by clicking on run. Let's just display it here, and you can see now we have our slider here. And let's just check out whether this text here, namely by the default text, will be overwritten with a value that comes in when we click on plus. Very good, it worked. So it worked perfectly. We have here, as you remember, you have this other string where it says value is, and now the value comes in, namely from the float value to be more precise. And now if we click on minus, it's less, obviously, and here it's 0. So you see, it works perfectly. Hey Shockers, you know what to do now. Thumbs up if you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to see more tutorials in the future, and like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and remember, stay tuned.